Hello, this is saxophonist Antonio Parker, and this is a conversation in jazz, where we are promoting jazz through telling the stories. Today we are presenting part 2 of our interview with the wonderful saxophonist and arranger, Mr. Scott Silbert. We ask you to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon so we can let you know when we are posting another video or going live. We also ask you to donate to our Cash App in order to support the channel and help us to produce future videos. Our Cash App is $Jazzology 101. That's $Jazzology 101. Enjoy the video. Okay, we're back. This is a conversation in jazz, and we're talking to the wonderful saxophonist, composer, and arranger, Mr. Scott Silbert. Man, that first part was good. Learned a lot. So I want to start out talking about musicianship, so I can learn how your mind conceptualizes music, and so.
Oh my!
My first question is, do you have a process for how you listen to music?
You know, that's an excellent question, because my process has refined itself over the years.
Okay.
And like I mentioned earlier, when I was a kid, my attention span was very fleeting. So, but as I've matured and slowed down, and I do learn that I have learned to listen better. When I want to listen to a piece of music, I usually close my eyes. I put my headphones on. I try not to have any distractions going on around me, and I try to keep my focus. You know, because I don't know if it's like this for you, but like sometimes I'll be listening to something, and after about maybe 20, 30 seconds, I'm like, okay, did I empty the dishwasher? I really have to work hard at concentrating. You know, and that's a skill you have to develop, because a lot of people have been exposed through media, television shows, especially like in kids shows. Like, you know, like in kids shows, on the screen, everything changes like within every 2 seconds. You know, this guy, then this guy, this guy. It's like, so your attention span, you got
hard to stay focused.
Yes, so it's very hard for me. So I have learned as I've gotten older that I really have to concentrate. And a very good friend of mine talked about listening one time, and he said, if you're going to listen to something, like let's take like Freddie the Freeloader from the Miles Kind of Blue side. He said, just listen to the track from beginning to end, right? Then go back and just listen to the drums from beginning to end. Just focus on the drums, and then go back and listen to it again, and just focus on the bass. Wow. And then the piano, and then you can get into what Miles played, or what Train played, or what Cannonball played. But that kind of, that's like an exercise in listening. And
you do that?
I try to.
So, yeah.
But,
and is there a point where you listen to it, you synthesize all those elements and try to hear it all together?
I tried, that's exactly, that's a good way of putting it. Like, I'll listen to an Ellington recording of a tune, and I'm so swept away in just listening to it. But then I start listening to individuals, players, not just solos, but I try to pick out their sounds within the ensemble.
Wow.
You know, I try to pick out Harry Carney's sound within the sound of the entire band. Or I listen to what Jimmy Blanton was playing, or, you know, that whole thing. It's constantly, I mean, you can listen to one track 1,000 times.
There needs to be a course on how to listen to music.
Yeah.
Because this is a listening art. I mean, it's a performing art, but we also do a lot of listening.
Yes.
And then when you play, are you listening to drums, or you listening to bass, or you listen to it all together? So that, you know, just, you know, I don't know, everybody's process might be different.
Yeah.
But so that's good to know, man.
It's something you have to work on. You know, concentrate, because I know some guys that like can just put on headphones and just like watch TV and listen to something. I'm like, how can you listen and watch? How can you do both things at one time? You know.
Now, let me ask you this: when you listen, do you, and you're trying to learn, listening to learn, or to do you have to cut off the emotional attachment to the music?
I don't think I can. I don't think I can. I
yeah,
you know.
So you,
yeah, I get. It's like if I'm going to spend that much time digging in on something, there's already a connection here that I can't.
But I'm sure there's songs where you may not get you. Like, have you ever had to learn a song or arrange a thing and you really you really didn't dig it?
Absolutely.
And so
I'll give you a perfect example of that.
Okay. Uh-huh.
I when I was in the Navy band, they came to me and said, we want to do an ABBA medley.
Who?
ABBA, the group.
Okay, yeah.
ABBA.
Yeah.
From Sweden.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, okay, that sounds fine. I'm like, listen, man, I'm Scott Silbert. I'm a jazz saxophonist.
Yeah.
I don't do ABBA medleys,
yeah.
right? So I sat down, I got all the ABBA recordings, and I'm listening to it, and I'm trying to transcribe it. But I'll be damned, I don't listen to ABBA, and I don't listen to that music, But after listening to it and writing all that, I'm like, okay, I can see why these guys were popular, and I can see why they're good. Because if you're going to write a textbook on how to write a pop song, these guys nailed it.
Wow.
So I walked away with a little bit more of appreciation for what they could do.
Did you use the same process that you talk about, like listen to this, and analyzing each instrument?
Yeah,
you did the same.
I would have to do the same. Like
Okay.
with this medley with ABBA, the vocals were important.
Okay.
So I had to write out what the vocals were singing.
Okay.
But then all the accompaniment was also very important.
Wow.
And when you're doing transcriptions like that,
Yeah.
you have to write it out exactly as it is on the recording. Otherwise, the listener's they're going to be like, that's not what that sounds weird. What's going on there? So you'd have to replicate it as best you can.
Wow.
But a lot of times I'd walk away with a better appreciation for these artists.
Talking about transcribing, did you do a lot of transcribing jazz solos?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
When I lived in Florida, I went through a period for about 2 years where that's all I did. Like,
now, did you write it out or did you just play it from
I wrote it out because
Okay.
I could not. There's a handful that I internalized, but most of the time I would write it out. Okay. And I wrote it out because let's take Lester Young's solo on like Lady Be Good, which is like just a great solo, right? I wrote it out because I wanted to see what he was doing, and if my brain could not process memorizing it and then just figuring it out.
Yeah.
I had to have it documented.
Yeah.
So I wrote it out, and I'm like, well, he's not doing anything like harmonically. He's not doing anything crazy. It's very simple, but everything is perfect.
Yeah.
Like he played everything perfectly. So yeah, I would write stuff out.
What do you think the benefits of transcribing is?
The first benefit is that it trains your ear.
Okay.
And I tell this to all young players. Like if they ask me, I'm like, best thing you can do, find a simple solo. Don't try to jump in and transcribe Michael Brecker or Coltrane. Yeah. Start with somebody like Louis Armstrong or Lester Young. Find an easy solo and exercise your ear. Get used to hearing those intervals,
Wow. Yeah.
And then for me also the benefit besides working my ear was that I could see, okay, it wasn't about, Lester Young didn't sit down and say, well, I'm going to play my Mixolydian dominant scale through here. It wasn't about that. Yeah. It was just like telling a story, and putting the right notes in the right place, man,
Now, this is something I'm working on. Mm-hmm. Like, can you walk up on stage and they playing a song you never heard and just play by ear?
Sometimes.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. Like if I walk up and they're playing a Wayne Shorter tune, I'm not going to, Wayne's tunes are very intricate, very beautiful, but
like the Sorcerer.
Yeah, like stuff like that, like Witch Hunt or any of that stuff. I'm not going to be able to hear it right away.
Yeah.
But if they're playing a standard or something that isn't too esoteric, that I can kind of feel my way through it. I think I can fake my way through it.
Wow. Also, talking about transcribing, you transcribe big band, large ensemble arrangements.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard enough transcribing a solo.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to go crazy trying to transcribe a big band arrangement.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I was going to say a lot of that comes from when I was in the Navy, and they would ask me like, okay, we need an album medley, so you need to transcribe it, or there's this Broadway song that we want you to do and write it out, not for Broadway, like for the concert band and the vocalist. So I would have to sit down and pick out those notes, and pick out each beat and
Is
whatever.
that a tedious process?
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
It is, but I will say that I have a little device. Like I do it very old school. I have my earphones. I got my phone, and I'll pull up a tune like a big band tune. I'll pull it up on YouTube, and I'll plug in my earphones, and I'll turn on the computer, and I'll listen. I'm like, okay, this guy's playing this note. Bam, he's playing that note, and this guy's playing this. Okay, you just have to pick through it,
Wow. So, do you have a reference, a piano?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
I have a keyboard that I
keyboard,
use
okay.
to enter the notes into a piano keyboard.
But I mean, you don't just, we were talking about Andrew White. Andrew was transcribing that John Coltrane solos without a.
Oh, I could never do that.
Yeah, he was just.
Yeah. I've heard about guys that do like Andrew, and then this teacher, Manny Album told me, he goes, I used to write for big bands. He says, I would have the baseball game on and no piano. He said, I would just sit there and write, I'm like,
Man, that is just.
that boggles my mind.
Yeah.
And there's people out there that can do that,
Yeah.
And it's astounding to me.
I heard I read that you studied with the great alto saxophonist Phil Woods.
Yeah.
Is that true?
I had one lesson with Phil Woods.
Wow. What was that like, man?
This is a funny story. Let me tell a story. So I was a big Phil Woods fan. This is about 1983.
Okay.
And I'm living in Orlando, and a lot of people told me, like, Phil Woods is a great teacher, man. You should try to get a lesson with Phil Woods. So I get his phone number, and I call his house. Right now, he lives up in the Poconos area of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. I get on the phone. His wife answers, and I said, I'd like to get a lesson with Phil Woods. She goes, oh, that's great. And I said, well, I live in Orlando, Florida. She said, oh, that's no problem. He said, we'll set it up for a couple months from now. I'm like, okay, cool. So time for the lesson. I drive from Orlando up to Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. I stay with my aunt and uncle overnight. Mm-hmm. Saturday morning, time to drive to Phil Woods' house. And I'm nervous, man. I'm like and so I drive up from Philadelphia to the Poconos. I get to his house, like at about 10 minutes before my lesson starts. Pull up. There's Phil Woods. He's raking leaves in his front yard. He's raking leaves.
Wow.
And that just blew me. I'm like, look at him. He's raking leaves. He's just like me, man. He's doing. I get out of my car, and Phil's like, hey, man, how you doing? Come on in. I'm like, solid. This is great. Walk into his house. Now, truth be told, I didn't really want to have a lesson with him. I just wanted to hang out with him for an hour and just ask him questions and just have him tell me stories,
Yeah.
But we go in. First thing he says to me, he says, you want to smoke some grass? First thing he said, you want to smoke some grass? And I said no, because I don't smoke grass. I haven't smoked.
For those who don't know, that's ooh-wee.
Ooh, the chronic.
Yeah.
It's grass. So we start our lesson. It's an hour lesson. First part of the lesson, he sits down at the piano, starts playing the blues. We're going to play the blues in all 12 keys. Medium tempo, nothing hard. I got through that. Everything was cool. He's like, okay, sounds good, man. Now let's talk about theory. I'm like, okay. So if you have a D minor scale or D minor chord, you're going to play your D Dorian. He starts going through some very basic music theory, jazz theory, that I was hanging with. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Time goes on, starts getting more intense, and he starts getting into some stuff that I have no idea what he's talking about, right? Like, now here's your super Locrian scale. Now if you have this chord, and you're going to play this, I'm like, geez, I'm starting to to get a little nervous. So like, okay, I don't get this at all, man. I just want to talk about, let's just play the blues again. So lesson goes on, and I'm getting more and more nervous because he's really overwhelming me with all this information. Finally, like the last 15 minutes, he says, okay, sit down at the piano. Now, I had no piano chops at all. I had never played the piano, right? He puts a piece of manuscript paper in front of me, and he writes down 4 notes. He writes down C, D, A, F. And I'm looking at it. He goes, okay, harmonize that for me on the piano. So I'm like, okay. C, I just play a C triad, with a C on top. C, D minor, and he slams the top of the piano. He says, don't do that. He said, don't play D minor. He says, man, that sounds so square, And I'm like, how about.
Yeah.
I must have been sweating. I
Wow.
I look like Don Knotts or something. I was just wigging out. And he said, man, you want to smoke some grass? And I was like, I don't think so, Mr. No, thank you, Mr. Woods. He goes, I think you need it.
Wow.
Yeah. And then like the clock struck 11 o'clock. Okay, thanks, man. You're all done. I'm like, okay, like it was over, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So it wasn't completely
Yeah.
a nightmare, but it wasn't great.
Yeah.
The backstory is I drive home, get back to Disney, right? I'm working with all these musicians, and I tell them the story. And I end it with like Phil Wood saying, like, I think you need to smoke some grass. And everybody's laughing, like you just laugh. Like, this one guy comes up to me, this trombone player, and he puts his arm around me. He said, Scott, man, why didn't you smoke weed with Phil Woods? And I said, well, Steve, I don't smoke weed. I didn't, and it wouldn't have not going good.
Yeah.
He said, man, when your grandkids, and he was dead serious, he said, when your grandkids are sitting on your lap and they ask you the first time you got high, you could say you got high with, he said, you got high with Phil Woods. That's like saying you got high with Charlie Parker.
Yeah. Wow. That's funny, man. Oh, wow. That is hilarious.
Yeah.
What a story.
Yeah. That's my Phil Woods story. But Phil was I had met him later on in different occasions. He was always very nice,
Yeah.
And but
It's amazing that he goes through all that process of thinking the door with.
Oh yeah. No, he was very, very theory based playing,
Wow.
which surprised me, which kind of took me off guard.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Did you study with anyone else in terms of improvisation?
Not really.
Okay.
Again, a lot of it was self-taught, but there were so many mistakes made along the way that I'm still clearing out the mistakes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was listening to something you were doing. I think it was during this COVID season, and you were doing were you in Florence or something? Yeah, and you were doing a performance, solo performance.
Oh
on the
yeah,
saxophone.
yeah.
And I noticed, man, you know all of these old obscure tunes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. I'm still looking at the Facebook.
Yeah. Well,
but so do you make it a point to learn a lot of tunes?
Well, there are so many tunes that I don't know, and but there's a lot of tunes that I learned just because I love them, and not a lot of people play them, and fortunately I'm in avenues when I work with rhythm sections where the guy's like, oh yeah, I know that, and we can play it. Not all the time, but that's the hardest thing about. I shouldn't say the hardest thing. One of the bridges that we have to all cross is like when we play together in a jam session kind of environment is all knowing the same material.
Yeah.
Like we could all play, let's just play blues. Okay, that's cool. Which blues head do you want to play? I don't know. There's a million of them,
Yeah.
But then some cat might say, I want to do some Wayne Shorter tunes. Or some cat might say, well, I want to do some Joe Henderson tunes.
Yeah. So, but we had that in the Facebook.
Yeah.
You learn these obscure tunes that that I'm like, and I'm sure it's because you love the song.
Yeah.
And another thing I noticed about you is that the composer, and you could speak.
Well,
is that just how you wired?
That's just how I'm wired.
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by. I think I romanticize so many aspects of what we do.
Oh wow!
That I love everything about it. That I want to learn more about it.
Wow.
Like a tune like "Old Folks," which is a great tune.
Yeah.
Written by Willard Robeson, kind of an obscure composer.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people know who he is, and he didn't write that many tunes, but the tunes that he did write were really, really cool. So. Wow. I guess I was always fascinated to learn some backstory and that kind of stuff.
I got to do some more homework.
No,
You learn to the composers, and I mean that's
Well,
but that's good. That's what we need to do.
And I was going to say, I do that because if someone says like, oh, someone's, George Gershwin wrote that too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to learn more about George Gershwin.
Yeah.
It's not about me spouting off knowledge.
Yeah.
It's just me maybe planting a seed with somebody.
Yeah, no doubt.
Or this tune was recorded by this person. Oh, I know, somebody hear that. So I don't know that person. I'm going to go check him out.
I also noticed that when you play, you like to tap your foot.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm
Now,
pretty bad about that.
Yeah. Now, because you got some people, they play, man, they don't, and they just.
Yeah.
And then you got, now, what does tapping your foot, is that helps you to lock into the swing?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
I also notice, so when I've seen some videos of myself playing where I'm tapping my foot, everything's going along just fine, but then my foot like gets out of time, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, that looks so ridiculous, I feel it,
Yeah.
and it just.
And it comes in handy when you had to play by yourself.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
time, having good time.
Yeah.
Is so crucial for a jazz player.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time with a metronome, practicing with a metronome, having the beats on two and four.
Mm-hmm.
But then I spent about a year just playing the drums.
Really?
All I had is a hi-hat cymbal and a ride cymbal. And I would put on a recording. And I remember a lot of it was the Oscar Peterson trio because there was no drums on it.
Uh-huh.
And I would just go ding, click, ding. So just trying to keep time.
Wow.
And finding if I could just get my time matched up. And that helped out. Helped out a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that.
Yeah. No, it's a good exercise.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that.
You don't have to do anything fancy. Just keep 2, 3, 4, and then keep the hi-hat on 2
Because
and
as
4.
horn players, we don't always, I mean, when we're soloing and we play the melody, engage with the rhythm section.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I want to do is strengthen my sense of time and that sort of thing. But I'm gonna have to.
Well, your time is good. I've heard you play, man. Your time is really good. But I know what you're saying.
There's the different levels of everything.
Yeah.
Another thing, you are a fantastic doubler. I'm serious. You sound wonderful. I heard you on flute and clarinet. Do you play any other woodwind instruments?
I tried playing oboe and English horn.
Yeah.
And it was a disaster. a very humbling moment for me.
Yeah.
On a gig where I thought real quick story. I bought an oboe because I thought I'm going to learn how to play oboe. So, and this was only about maybe 8 years ago. Practiced all the time. Get a nice scale, nice tone, nice sound. I'm like, okay. And after about maybe 8 or 9 months, I thought, okay, I'm getting it together,
Yeah.
So I get a call to play with this big band for Michael Feinstein, who's a great vocalist. And the contractor says, now, in your book, there's some English horn and oboe. Wow. I said, not a problem. I've got you covered.
I got it.
Show up at the gig. I get up my tenor, my flute, my clarinet, and there's my oboe and my English horn. I set up my little reed tray. I set up a little cup of water. I'm like, I got all the accoutrements, right? And I'm letting my reeds soak. So we start off the rehearsal, and we do about 3 or 4 up-tempo, like jazz, big band tunes and vocal, like Sinatra type stuff. Then about maybe 30, 35 minutes into the rehearsal, we get into doing this ballad where the oboe part is. I'm like, okay, I pick up the oboe and I get the reed, put it on there. Wow. And I had a little exposed solo. It was very simple, like half notes and whole notes and quarter notes. But it sounded horrible.
Wow.
And the conductor's like, let's try that again. And okay. And I can feel my neck getting hot. And then he goes, just play it on flute. I'm like, you got it. And I realized I barely have time to practice the saxophone. I don't have time to practice the flute. I don't have time to practice the clarinet. What am I thinking that I'm going to be able to play the oboe?
Wow.
And it was about a week after that I just sold the thing because I just knew I knew I was not going to be able to commit the time to playing it.
Well, how'd you get so good on clarinet and flute? And I need help.
Yeah.
Would you give us some advice?
Get a teacher.
Okay.
and because like I started playing the clarinet and flute like when I was really young, doing it all wrong,
Wow.
and still paying for mistakes, especially on the clarinet. Like there's some things like I'm always trying to learn more about playing the clarinet as far as my fingers, because you miss something, you're gone. You make a squeak. So I'm always working on the clarinet and the fingers and the approach and the sound. And it's the same with flute, Just getting a good teacher and then just practicing all the time, man.
Gotcha.
There's no shortcut.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get a teacher.
Yeah.
Yes. I had to bite the bullet, man.
Yeah, there's no like as far as doubling, there's no shortcuts. Everybody I know or have read about like the double, they tell you, man, no, they put the time in.
Yeah. Oh man,
it's tough, man. And the other thing, one of the reasons I tanked so poorly on the oboe on that gig was because when I was practicing the oboe, that's all I would practice for. So after 2 hours of playing the oboe, it started sounding pretty good. But what I should have done is practice the tenor for 30 minutes and then pick up the oboe.
Oh, wow.
And then put the oboe down and then pick up the clarinet and play that for 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Instead of just concentrating on an instrument. So going back and forth is a big help. Because after an hour on the clarinet, everybody's like, well, I sound pretty good. But then when you try to pick up the tenor and play, it's like,
Yeah.
So,
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you giving this wisdom out. Let's talk about you as a composer and arranger.
Okay.
Are you more a composer or arranger?
I'm an arranger.
Okay.
I'm not a composer at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've done some composition, though, haven't you?
I've done very, very few.
Yeah,
I've done a couple.
Okay.
But I've always found that, like I just wrote a tune. I did a tune not long ago. And I thought, okay, I wrote it out. And it's like a little standard, like a 32-bar tune, nothing fancy, I thought, yeah, this sounds pretty good. And then someone played it for me, and they said, yeah, this sounds a lot like, and it sounded identical to another tune.
Okay.
And I thought, okay. So I realized early on as an arranger, like, I can't think of I couldn't be as creative writing my own composition when there are guys like George Gershwin, Chick Corea, any number of great composers out there. What I would rather do is take one of their tunes and try to arrange it in like with my voice, Yeah. But and writing originals and stuff like that, I always feel like they're a derivative of something else.
Gotcha.
And there's just so much great material out there.
Okay.
So I never felt comfortable composing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have a process for arranging? Like when you arrange a piece, do you have a process that you generally go by?
Yeah. It sometimes it depends on who I'm writing it for. Like if I'm writing it for a chart for a vocalist. But a good example is like some of the things I wrote for Fred Irby for Howard University. So and Fred was fantastic. For he would hire me for many I don't know how many years he would hire me to write one chart for the big band. But he would always ask me to write something like, I was always like, man, how am I going to write that? Like I remember there were so many times where I would write charts for him. I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to write this? But the process usually starts with deciding. Either he'll tell me, I want you to feature the tenor saxophone, and he might give me some directive. Like he might say, I got a good tenor saxophone soloist, trumpet solo, trumpet section can't play all that high. I got a good trombone section. He might give me some directives.
Yeah.
But the process usually starts with me starting with the tune and really getting deep into the tune, like looking at how the melody is structured, how the harmony works with the melody. But then the actual process of just sitting down and writing it that's the creative part, and you just have to decide how you want to present it.
Yeah. What about the form? Like, do you say, okay, I'm gonna do it, intro, interlude, like how? So you got a song. Do you? I'm gonna take it here, and then I'm gonna come back to the song. Okay,
I think about a roadmap.
Okay.
I don't think. What I try to think of is the chart starts here. It's going to end here. Now, where do I want to go between here and here?
Gotcha.
And do I want it? I don't want it to just go boom, wah, and end and be intense for the whole time. But what I wanted to do is
Ebb
do
and flow.
this.
You
and
want
go.
some ebb and
Yeah,
flow?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Get intense in some places, bring it down in some places.
Wow.
You know, so then it's just it does. I don't want to say it comes naturally, but a lot of times it just kind of flows out of you. You know,
Wow.
you decide how you want to start. Sometimes just figuring out how you're going to start a chart is really hard.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's easy.
You ever hear one of your arrangements and you're like, I did that. Like,
I'll be honest, in all honesty, of all the arrangements I've written, and I don't know, 500, 600 charts maybe, I can honestly say there's maybe about 8 or 9 where I say like, wow, I wrote that. I'm really
Wow.
happy with that. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of them, the other charts are, you know, I like, you know,
Yeah.
but there's a couple that I'm very proud of,
Wow.
you know, and that's a cool feeling.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, no doubt, man.
Yeah.
You ever get lucky and just land on something like, oh wow, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the charts I did when I was in the Commodores, my wife and I, we just had our first child, and the child was colicky, so he was up a lot at night. So one night I was working. I'd found the tune "Tones for Jones Bones" in a real book, and I thought, "Hey, this is kind of a cool. I'm like taking it out on the piano. This is kind of cool. So I started on a chart, and it was just going along, you know, intro and then the melody and then a trombone solo, sax solo. And one night I'm up and my baby is like up and my wife is exhausted. I'm like, I'll get up with him, you know. So I went up and I'm feeding him and everything. And I took him downstairs. It's like 3 a.m. And I sat down and I'm like, I wonder if I did this. I wonder if I did this. I'm like, oh, okay, I think and this is when I was studying with Manny. Let's put the baby down. Get out my pencil, start writing some stuff out. And the chart went in an entirely different direction.
Wow.
But it came at that moment where I was just so exhausted and I couldn't think. But
Wow.
it kind of turned into something really cool.
Yeah.
And then when I heard it, I was like, oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
It turned out all right. You know, I was really happy with that.
Wow,
you know,
that's
because
cool,
there's
man.
so many times where
Yeah.
I've written charts, I'm like, oh, man.
You ever have writer's block or arranger's block?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And I remember reading something about Stravinsky, where Stravinsky would get up in the morning and he would just write for 2 hours. Like, even if he wasn't working on something, he would write. He would work, and like he would push past that writer's block. If it was writer's block, and a lot of writers have told me, or I've read that they would say, man, you know, you just got to jump in and go.
Wow.
Sometimes I would get writer's block just from being exhausted from writing. Like, I can't write another concert band chart right now, man. I need a nap.
Yeah.
But you just have to push through that writer's block thing.
Wow. Beautiful, man. Let's talk about the Smithsonian Jazz Masterworks Orchestra.
Yeah.
That's where we met.
That's where we met. On the
when
mean
did
streets of Cairo.
Oh, man.
That was great.
I'm not going to tell the story how I got there.
Yeah. But what a trip, man.
Yeah.
What a trip
oh,
that
man,
was, man.
That was beautiful, man. I mean, it was, what an experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, how long have you been with the...
I don't remember when I was playing. I think it might have been like 2003, maybe?
Okay.
2002, 2003 is when I started.
And who was the director? Was that...
Well, David Baker was...
David
was running the band. But the way I got on that band is another God moment where God dropped something in my lap. So back in the 90s when the band started, the Smithsonian Band, they had their own radio show, I think on NPR.
Oh, wow.
And they would play, like live from the Smithsonian. It's the jazz band. And they would play, you know, and I remember hearing them, and I'm like, man, I would love to play with that band. Wow. I would love to just do a concert with that band because they're playing the music that I know. You know, they would play a lot of 30s and 40s. And so nothing happened. And one day, my first gig with the band was this Benny Goodman tribute concert. It was a Benny Goodman small group.
Okay.
And it was a great band. It was a guy named Dan Block from New York playing clarinet. I think Chuck Red was playing drums. And I don't remember the rest of the band, but Lawrence Schoenberg was like the assistant director of the band at the time. He was leading this gig. Now, Lauren's a great tenor saxophone player, but he wanted to play piano on the gig. So he asked Chuck asked people in the band, like, hey, I need somebody, we need a tenor player that can play like Zoot Sims.
Wow.
And Chuck Red goes, I know a guy, you know.
Wow.
So I get a phone call. They say, hey, Scott, you wanna play this concert, this Benny Goodman tribute concert? Like, how about? Yeah. Yes,
Wow.
I'm
Wow.
there. And that's how I started. I did that gig, and I guess I did a good job. Then they said, oh, we got this job. Can you play baritone sax with the man? I'm like, oh yeah. And I just kept saying yes.
Yeah.
Saying yes because I love it, man.
Yeah. Beautiful, man.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the places that you've gone? I've gone to Egypt. We just did a tour. The tour we did.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
So, where's some places you have performed with the jazz,
With the
Smithsonian
band?
Jazz Masterworks?
Well, we did that great tour. We went to London and we went to Tokyo and Hong Kong and Beijing, which, you know, that was
first class, by the way.
first class. I got to tell you, Antonio, I get excited if someone calls me up and says, Scott, I got a gig in North Carolina. This is what it pays, and I got a hotel room for you. I'm like, I am there. I get excited just like traveling and playing and staying in a hotel room, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the greatest thing in the world. So these things with the Smithsonian that was phenomenal, you know.
And then I noticed you like, when we get to different places, you like to go out and walk around.
Oh
and
yeah,
explore
we all do. We all like to explore.
Yeah.
So we went to we did that trip to Egypt, which was just mind-boggling, you know.
Man, I felt when I because I flew by myself.
Yeah.
We won't tell you how that happened, but man, when I got there and when I saw this pyramid, I felt like I was standing on the moon.
Yeah.
It was just another world. It was otherworldly.
It's indescribable.
Yeah.
When you see something that you've only seen pictures of your entire life, and we were driving in the bus going up there, and I'm looking at these things. I'm like, I don't know where I am right now, but I'm looking at these pyramids that have been here since before Christ. You know, like it was mind-boggling.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
The whole thing, the whole week that we were there, I was just kind of floating because I couldn't believe that I was there.
Yeah,
you know?
It was just
And we also did a tour in Russia. We went to Moscow.
Oh, how was that?
That was great. It was, you know, again, for me, like, I love it.
Yeah.
You know, I love going
Let's go.
on the road, you know. But it's always cool
Yeah.
with me, you know, because, you know, getting to meet new people, being in new places, you know,
no doubt. Yeah.
it was cool.
Yeah, you've had and the musicians in the band are just top notch.
Yeah.
So you went from Disney playing with top, and you know, so you've always surrounded yourself with some of the best musicians.
I've
man.
been very fortunate.
Got Charlie Young.
Yeah. Oh my God. You know, like to be able to sit with players who are better than you is the best thing.
Yes.
If you keep your ears open, keep your mouth shut, and you can grow and learn so much from that's been my whole career. But to sit in a band with you and Charlie Young and Tom Williams and Tony Knocker and James King, I mean, it's like I can't help but be a better musician.
Yeah.
And it makes me want to work that much harder to make sure I'm keeping up with everybody. You know?
Ken Kimmery has really kept that thing.
Yeah.
Moving forward, man.
And he's got such beautiful people.
Yeah.
Lovely people that you just love being around.
Yeah,
you know?
no doubt.
And that's what makes the vibe so great when we get on stage to play.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Have you done any recording with the
Smithsonian?
Yeah, Smithsonian.
We just finished a couple years ago. We did that Leonard Bernstein album.
Okay.
That Charlie put together.
Yeah.
So we did that recording.
Okay. Wow. Beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Now I'm just going to read off some of this, and so we're going to talk a little bit about you. You done played with almost everybody, man. In addition to performing with the Smithsonian Jazz Masterworks Orchestra, you performed with or composed for the National Symphony Orchestra, Natalie Cole, Stanley Turrentine, Rosemary Clooney, Bob Hope. Bob Hope?
Bob Hope.
Really?
I played for Bob Hope back in Orlando, back around 1983.
Wow.
And I wasn't a big Bob. Another quick
Come
story.
on.
Not a big Bob Hope fan. Like, you know, I was like, okay, he's all right. You know, I know he's famous and everything, but I wasn't a big fan of his comedy. But show up at the gig, and it was a full big band. And Bob Hope is one of those old school comedians. Like, they want to have the band behind them.
Yeah, yeah.
And we only ended up playing like 5 minutes, man.
Okay.
You know, but he was so funny.
Wow.
He walked up on stage. He did an hour, and just tell one joke right after another.
Yeah.
And he was real. And he would turn around and talk to the band. And we were in on the joke. Man. It was very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was very cool.
Yeah, man. The Spinners.
Yeah.
Man, the Temptations, the Four Tops, the Les Brown Orchestra.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, there's a Les Brown motivational speaker.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is another Les Brown.
And he has a twin brother, by the way.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, man. Eddie Daniels. Is that the clarinet player?
Yeah.
That you was telling me about? And wow. Man, this is beautiful. Yeah. Okay. You've been a featured soloist on national concert tours at the International Association of Jazz Educators Conference, the Saxophone Symposium,
Yeah.
the Midwest Clinic, the Detroit Montreux Jazz Festival. Man, what is it like being Scott Silbert? What it feels like being Scott Silbert?
It's lovely, man. You know.
Yeah, you are a success, man.
Antonio, I've had so many great opportunities.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have a goal. I know some musicians that will chart their life.
Yeah.
Like, next year have done this, and in 5 years I want to be here, in 10 years I want to be here.
Wow.
I've never done that.
Wow.
All I've done was just, I want to be ready to play.
Wow.
Quincy Jones said, and I'm paraphrasing, Quincy Jones said something like, there's nothing sadder than a musician who's given an opportunity and he's not ready for it. And I always thought the best thing I can do is just be ready. I got to play as well as I can.
Yeah.
Try to be a decent guy. Try to treat people with respect and be respectful to the music and hold the music up. And like literally, like God has just dropped things in my lap, man.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great joys.
Yeah.
The people I get to work with, like you,
Thank
and
you.
Charlie Young. There's so many gracious people that I've gotten to work with,
No
man.
doubt. Yeah, this music thing is something, ain't it?
It is. Yeah. It's great.
Now we're coming to the end. We got to talk about your CD, your first CD recording.
My first CD, yes.
Okay. Now you did a big Kickstarter campaign.
Yes.
Let's talk about the CD. We'll talk about the Kickstarter.
Okay.
What inspired you to say, I'm ready to do my own recording?
What it was, coming out of COVID,
Okay.
coming out of the past year, which was dreadful for everybody.
Yeah.
No one
Yeah.
was immune to.
No doubt.
As far as musicians, no one was immune to not losing all their gigs, not playing,
Yeah, it was rough.
not seeing people.
Yeah.
And right before COVID dropped, I was doing some dances in the D.C. area, swing dances, which I love doing, you know. And as COVID went on and we didn't know what was going to be happening, I just got to say, like, well, I think I'm going to do a recording. It's time to do a recording.
Okay.
And I want to do it. The most important part about this recording, I can't wait to make the CD. I can't wait to get it in people's hands. I can't wait for people to hear it. But the best thing about the recording was having everybody in the same room.
Yeah.
And getting everybody there and seeing all these people that I love that we haven't seen for over a year.
And I'm honored to be a part of it.
Oh, you were so
Yes,
beautiful,
great
man.
musicians.
Yeah, it was it was just fun.
Yeah.
And I knew that for this recording, I wanted to do a lot of tunes, and I didn't have a lot of time, so we did 15 tunes.
Wow.
In one day.
Yeah. Wow.
Right? Two takes.
Yeah.
And everything sounds great, man.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a clam every once in a while.
Yeah.
That's cool
Yeah.
because the energy is so great,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
But getting everybody together and seeing everybody again and just playing our horns and making music.
Now we got to talk about how Amy Shook.
Amy Shook, yeah.
And she helped you. She supported you through this process.
She
so
held my
give
hand
us some
through
love.
this
We
whole
got.
thing. Oh my God, Amy.
Come on,
Shook.
Amy. This for you now.
Yeah. She. When I said, because I don't know these things. I'm like,
Yeah, she had the cameras, and
Yeah.
she had.
Yeah, I said, I want to do a big band. And we're
Yeah.
going, well, we'll have to get some money together. We'll do a Kickstarter campaign. What's a Kickstarter? You know,
Yeah.
and she got me all signed up on that and took me through that whole process. And then for the recording, did all the video cameras and you know, just doing everything that I could not figure out how to do, you know,
Yeah.
because there's 1,000,001 parts to
Yeah.
making a CD, you know.
Now you did all those, and those were some challenging arrangements. You did all did you transcribe those
Yeah.
arrangements?
They're all transcriptions
all over this
that I did.
that period.
Yeah.
Wow.
The whole time we were down for COVID,
Wow.
I did a lot of transcribing. I mean, I did about maybe 75, 80 arrangements.
Wow.
Yeah. That are all on the computer, and then some of them showed up on the recording.
Wow. Well, man, it was great music. Fun playing that stuff too.
Yeah.
Really, a lot of fun, man. What was you have a title of the CD?
Yeah, it's going to be called Jump Children.
Jump Children.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's some of the music? What was some of the music that you?
Well,
had
we did. It's all relatively obscure, not obscure, but it's big band arrangements from the 30s and 40s that haven't been done a lot.
Gotcha.
So we got from the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, we got Jump Children and She's Crazy with the Heat. And then from Harry James, there's a tune called 11:60 p.m. And from Duke Ellington, we're doing a tune called Dusk, which is a lovely ballad.
Yeah.
And, you know, stuff like that I just thought not only people, I hope that people listening to it will say, yeah, I enjoy listening to this, but also that dancers will get, and they'll like, yeah, okay, this stuff is good to dance to, you know.
Yeah. So, do you have any future desires to do like a small group thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. After this project, after we drop this, I'd like to do a small group thing.
Okay.
And I don't know, you know, recording is fun, but we'll see. But a small group thing would be cool.
Yeah. You have a projected release date?
Sometime in October.
Okay.
You know, it's
Who are some of the musicians on? You don't have to name everybody.
Oh yeah, I'll be happy to name everybody.
Okay.
So the saxophone section was Charlie Young and you, Grant Langford and Lee Pilzer, and then myself. Rhythm section was Tony Knocker, Amy Shook, Craig Gildner, Ken Kimmery. Trumpet section was Chris Walker, Liesl Whitaker, Joshua Kaufman. Trombone section was Kirsten Warfield, Dave Perkel, and Jen Krupa. Gretchen Midgley did some of the vocals, and we had this phenomenal sound man named John Mortensen.
Yeah. Wow.
And all of these people were saints, man, to come out and do this recording.
It was beautiful, man. It was a great time, man. And you did it at Catholic.
Yeah.
Right? Now, was that the first recording ever done? Is this the first recording that will be done in that
room?
Yeah.
No, actually, it's funny you should mention that, because when I walked in that room, I remembered being in a recording session there about 25 years ago.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, or 20 years ago with a small jazz band.
Oh, wow.
Where we recorded in there. In fact, Tony Knocker, the piano player, was on that session too.
Okay.
And he said, yeah, we've been here before.
Wow.
You know, yeah. So I remember doing that there.
All right, man. This is dynamite, man. I have some closing questions.
Okay.
Okay, just a few. How's your cat?
My cat?
Your cat.
Oscar?
Oscar.
Oscar's great. I love Oscar. We have Oscar's my cat that we rescued. He came from our backyard. So he's doing great.
Okay.
We get along beautifully. And we have 3 kittens now, 3 feral cats that have shown up at our house. So we're in the process of not just feeding them, but we're going to try to catch them and get them spayed and neutered and taken care of. So,
beautiful, man. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, man, great. And how's your family doing?
Everybody's doing great.
I want to give your family your wife. I never met your.
Yeah, my wife
or
Jennifer.
Jennifer,
who again was so supportive of me. It's tough being married to a musician, man. And all my years in the Navy band, where I would be working at home all the time, and like she's been a peach, man.
Beautiful,
She's been wonderful, man. And she's doing great. I got 2 kids, Diana and Sam. Sam lives in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a beautiful family.
What is it like being a father?
It's great, man.
Were you good
it's
at
hard work.
Were you good at
I like to think I was. You know, history will tell.
Yeah.
You know, history will tell. But I think I enjoyed it. I love kids, man.
Yeah,
I
cool.
love being with my kids. I miss them.
Yeah.
You know, I think about them all the time. I pray for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Beautiful, man.
Being a dad is a lot of work.
Yeah.
But there's a reward there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when
doubt.
you see your kids, I'm sure you've seen your kids grow into be their own individual persons.
Yeah.
And
no doubt.
making their own mistakes, but
Yeah.
you know, you're there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So
beautiful, man. What's this? I don't know if this is a rhetorical question, but what's next for Scott Silbert? I know that you got a CD, and
I don't know what's next.
but that's like you say. You just
I keep myself ready to go. I keep myself prepared, ready to play, and I wait for opportunities.
Beautiful.
You know.
Yeah.
And with God's blessing, things really seriously have just dropped in my lap, and I've been given so many great opportunities.
Beautiful.
And that's cool.
Yes.
You know,
man.
like that.
Oh man! Last question.
Yes, sir.
You can talk to the people. Where can people learn more about you, the recording? You have, I don't know, email, Facebook, or you can talk to the people and let them know.
Well,
where they can, how they can.
I don't have a website right now, but that is something. Once the CD is ready, I'm going to start a website. But people can always reach me on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, it's Scott A. Silbert, or if you want to email me, it's zootfan@aol.com. I still have an AOL.
Okay, me too.
Address. Do you? Yeah. Okay, good. I'm not the only one. Yeah. All right, that's cool. And I am going to get a website going, but one of the things I want to do on the website is not just promote the CD or whatever gigs I got coming up, but I want to make it. I want to have some of these transcriptions that I've done, like the transcriptions of Bird and Lester Young and Zoot, and I want to print them out and have them downloadable as PDFs for free.
Wow!
I want to start giving stuff away.
Wow!
For people that are interested, charts, whatever.
Yeah.
I want to start giving. I want to make some money. I'm going to try to make some money, but I'm not worried about that.
Yeah. Well, you know what I found is that, and this is the secret of life. Mm-hmm. Well, that I unraveled or uncovered, is that when you give, the universe will multiply it back to you.
You know it, man.
Yeah, so
that's right.
And the fact that you say your motive for playing music is just because of love. Mm-hmm. That's why those opportunities come.
I think so.
Yeah,
I like to. I appreciate you.
A lot of people do stuff for money, or they want to be seen or famous and all this. But when you're genuinely doing it and you're sharing, it just, the doors open. So
I think so. I really that has been shown to me.
Yeah.
So many times in my life.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel very strongly about. Like I just love to play. I don't really care. It's probably a horrible business thing to say. I don't care about the money.
Yeah.
Because the money you got to eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just love doing it so much, man, and grateful for every opportunity that I've had.
Yeah. Keep that love, man.
Yeah.
Keep the love for. Scott, man, I want to thank you, man. We had a lot of fun.
We did.
Learned a lot, man, and I'm sure the people learned a lot.
I hope so.
Because a lot of times we see the end. We don't see what the process.
Yeah.
So it's good learning about some of your process and how you arrived at.
I appreciate. I'm glad I got to share because everybody's got a story to tell, and we can all. For me, I try to learn something new every day, and if I learn about a way to do something different, or if I learn about somebody and how they came to where they are, it's cool.
Yeah. All right, my man.
My man.
There you go. The one and only Mr. Scott Silbert. So this is A Conversation in Jazz, and we'll see you on the next one.